The following is a special presentation of Tony Kurre Radio. Keep your mission on your mind and your mind on your mission. This is Mission Minded with Michael Coleman.
Welcome back to another Mission Minded. Keep your mind, your mission on your mind. He is Michael Coleman. He is the CEO of the Heart of Alabama Food Bank down there in beautiful Montgomery, Alabama. They cover 35 counties in the great state of Alabama. And if you have not checked out our wonderful interview we did with the CEO of Feeding America, you can currently find it up. We actually was about 45 minutes long. We actually cut it up into about 3 or 4 different pieces. You can hear that on Bite by Bite and Mission Minded. It's fantastic. She, of course, is one of the 100 most influential people on the face of the earth, and we were happy enough, and thank you, Michael, for getting her on. She was fantastic. What a joy. She's one of those people that you talk to and you just feel smarter after talking to her.
Oh, yeah, very impressive leader. Yeah, was very high up as an attorney with Walmart, and just very influential. Has been a great leader in Feeding America, and so really worth the audience's time to go listen to her perspective on it. And
the fact that she had, correct me if I'm wrong here, is it 107 or 108 brothers and sisters? Her mom and dad.
Mom and dad were such huge foster parents.
They're in the Foster Hall of Fame, and they fostered kids. And she said at any given time there were 18, 19 kids in our household, and we asked her the question, what do you do for the holidays? How do you get everyone around that kitchen table, man? But just an amazing story. So it was really, really good.
Yeah, and she, comes out of poverty, but just a loving family out of Louisiana. Just has an amazing perspective. And I can tell you, working in the Feeding America system every day, just provides great leadership and understands the balance between the national office. And then we are, of course, contracted with them. We're separate 501c3s. We run our own business. But they're a supportive connection, and she knows how to strike that balance of how to be supportive without trying to overstep and get into each individual food bank's issues. And so it's been great to serve with her. And I think it came out in the interview, so I really encourage people to go hear.
I don't know what this is, and I mean this in the most respectful way, but she scared me a little bit. She's so strong-willed and independent, and it didn't take but about 30 seconds of hearing her speak, and it really made me. I found myself sitting up straighter in my chair. I found myself clearing my throat more often so I could ask the questions. She made me want to be a better interviewer just by having her on, and I knew her past, and I knew that, she worked 13 years for Walmart, and I know that she could basically do whatever she wants to put her fingers on. But she was scary in a very good way. She demands your attention, and I love that.
Yeah, she reminds me of the media used to throw this around with Dick Cheney all the time, the term gravitas. And that's a good way to describe her. Right from the very beginning, the way she carries herself, the way she addresses things, there's just weight to her words, weight to her perspective, and it becomes clear very, very soon of interacting with her.
She's fantastic. Check out those podcasts. They're available, of course, through Spotify or wherever you get your favorite podcasts. We're available in every major industry. And, of course, you can also have heard those shows on the TKR app, thanks to the 100,000 folks who have downloaded that in 14 different shows here. So we're speaking here on December 13th. I'm so happy that you and I, brothers, we get to break some bread today and talk some business. And I think this is a perfect time to do this. I was going to ask you, 2023 overall, what was the business year like? That was very general and very broad, but you're really good at coming up with different angles and different seeds on things like that. But you came up with a great idea, and I think it's super because around this time of the year, and we know that there is a record number of people who have now started their own businesses. I think there's no doubt that there's not a coincidence at all. The fact that we just went through COVID and a lot of people are starting their own businesses from home. They're like, you know what? I'm tired of working for the man. I don't want to work from this office anymore. I want to work from home. I want to be home with my pets and my kids, this, that, and the other. And they've started their own businesses. Sometimes that works. Sometimes it doesn't. I believe it's 1 in 7 or 1 in 8 businesses actually become somewhat successful over a 3-year period. period. And pardon me if those numbers are wrong. But with the holidays coming up, I always get people saying, man, it must be great to own your own business around the holidays because you can take as much time off as you want. You don't have to worry about telling your boss you can't come in on Christmas Eve or Christmas Day or New Year's Eve. You can take that Friday off. You can do whatever, da-da-da-da-da. And I just always kind of smirk and laugh. And I go, yeah, but, there's no reason to take the day off if I don't have some dinner to put on my kitchen table and feed my family. That's great. We can all just sit there and look at each other and daddy could take all the time off I want. But if I want to feed my family, I got to continue to work. But just talk about that a little bit. And where do you see, say, over the course of the next 3 to 5 years, do you see people pulling back on that? Are you seeing people that started their own businesses that are being successful with it? Or are they going, wow, what did I get myself into? How often do you see people that have actually worked for the man for 20 or 30 years? And I've always said, people are like, how is it? I'm like, you know what? I miss getting that paycheck every 2 weeks. I knew no matter what kind of performance I had, I was going to get paid every 2 weeks. I don't know when I'm getting paid anymore. Sometimes it comes in clumps. Sometimes I've gone 3 months without a paycheck. Yes, 3 months without a paycheck. It's nice to know that direct deposit's going in every 2 weeks. And I can imagine some people, it doesn't mean that they're not successful in what they try to do in their business, but sometimes people don't want to own their own business. Sometimes it's not such a necessarily a bad thing to work for the man, to be a follower or something. But just talk about that. I know I threw a lot of different topics out there.
I'll tell you a couple of weeks ago, I went and spoke to a master's level class, and it was all international students at Faulkner University. And one of the things that I talked about was we were talking about organizational culture. And so I'm talking to people who are all from different countries. Now they're here on a visa and they're able to work. Some are working, some are not. So, the American culture, I said, one of the things that I love about is that in America, you don't have to wait for somebody to give you a job. You can create your own job. Yep. If you have a talent or a vision for something, if you have resources and you're willing and know how to market that and work hard and develop and that's one of the great things about it. And so when you get in these work environments, there's these statistics that are coming out that are saying all these Gen Z individuals are looking at millennials, which is so funny now that millennials are getting up, I guess, close to 40 or whatever now. And they're like, oh, this is working for the man. This is for the birds. I want to go operate my own business. And it's so funny because a true entrepreneur is somebody to me that says, hey, I've got an idea. It's how I want to do it. And it may not be vastly different. It may be a model that's already out there, but they're like, but I see how I can improve or make it better. But a lot of people interpret entrepreneurialism as, oh, I just want to be my own boss. And so they don't bring the work ethic. They don't bring the commitment. They don't bring the ideas. They don't bring the financial, and they don't consider all the risks. Like you said, sometimes you're like, well, I don't want to serve the man, but serving the man can have a lot of advantages. And just a couple off the top of my head, and some you've already touched on. You know you're going to get that check. You may be in accounting or you may be somewhere else in the organization. And, you know that, for instance, if you work for Walmart, you know that Walmart's going to be able to put the money in the bank every day. Mm-hmm. So you don't have those kind of worries about where sales currently and all those kind of things. So the day-to-day, you're not up and down emotionally as the business model is. As the business is ebbing and flowing. As an employee, lots of times you're just, hey, I'm here, I work 2 weeks, I get a paycheck. And then you get all the benefits. When you go to the doctor, you take for granted that, hey, I've got insurance and I've got a retirement. I'm building something towards, all these benefits. When you jump into that for yourself, it all that just goes away. And something that I think people really don't forget or they miss out on is when you're in a positive work culture, it can be very affirming and supportive. And if you're not, there's actually businesses have avenues like, hey, if somebody's sexually harassing me or if somebody's creating a hostile work environment, I can actually go to HR and I can get all that stopped. Mm-hmm. So millennials think, and other people have before, they're like, well, I don't want to work for the man. I don't want to punch a clock. I'm going to start my own business. thinking you're not going to have a boss. And then what happens is you get out there and first of all the benefits go away, all the security of the paycheck going away. Mm-hmm. And yes, you don't have somebody that's dictating to you every single day what you have to do, but there's this illusion that you don't have a boss, and you actually do. And that boss becomes your clients.
Yeah.
And you can speak to that probably in your transition over the last few years into radio much better than I could as to what that's now like in terms of your bosses or your clients and all those. You don't have even the protections because you can have somebody that comes up all of a sudden and says, I don't want to do business with you anymore. Who are you going to complain to? Who are you going to go to? Or, hey, my rates are going up, and they cut that. I mean, there's just no safeguards in the system built for people like that.
Well, there's a big difference between working for one boss and then working for 20. And when you're talking about, and I think this is just a brilliant angle that you took, because your clients are your bosses and your bosses, the customer's always right. You want to make them happy because they're actually paying your salary. They're paying your business in order to perform whatever that service is. And, as opposed to just kissing the boss's ass every Monday and making sure you show up to work on time and doing your job and getting that paycheck every 2 months, all of a sudden now you're doing that to 20 or 30 or 40 different people, depending on how big your business is. And I a lot of people are like, I should be doing that anyway. I'm an extrovert. I'm a people person. That's not hard for me to do. Well, much like you are at the Heart of Alabama Food Bank, you're the boss over a lot of individuals. You're dealing not only with the business aspect of it, but you're dealing with the personal aspect of it. You're dealing with people's personal problems. And, every business that's spending money with your business, they have their own business issues that they're dealing with. Maybe they're cutting corners, or maybe they're laying people off, or maybe they're going through a divorce, or maybe they're going, and so, it's just, it's a really interesting dynamic. There's a large sense of control there, but be careful what you wish for.
Yeah, I would tell you. So I will compare and contrast my sister and myself in terms of the services we provide for. So I tend to be much more easygoing if I'm going to have somebody like the guy who does my yard. So I might say, he says, okay, he cuts my yard. He charges me $60 every time he cuts it. I don't go out there. He just says, he Venmos me, says, hey, I cut your yard. I don't go home and look at my yard. If he cuts it unevenly or if he misses a patch, I don't get upset. I'm just like, yeah, here's your $60, next time. My sister, on the other hand, will go out there almost and just scour like an inspector with a magnifying glass to see, are all these blades the same? Are the blades ripping the grass? Or, it just, and so she recently hired a painter. And so she's like, hey, I need you to come in here and paint my cabinets. Well, he came in and didn't paint them to her satisfaction. First of all, it's very hard to get good help to come in now. People say they're going to do it and they're not on time. And so that really upsets her. But anyway, they didn't do a good job. And sometimes I think I've gone, well, you're a little bit too perfect. Mm-hmm. But this time I agreed with her, didn't. And so she said, I'm only going to pay you for this. I'm not going to pay you for this because unless you come back and fix what you've done. And so here's a guy, for better or for worse, who planned on making, let's say, $2,000 for painted cabinets and thinks he put in the time. And now all of a sudden, and is planning his life based on getting $2,000. Mm-hmm. And now she's saying, well, I'm not satisfied, and you either have to come back and spend another day here, or I'm going to only pay you $1,400. And it's like, well, wait a minute, that's not fair. Okay, well, who are you going to go to?
Yeah.
There's no protections. There's no business. You have to then say, well, that client now is your boss, and you have to say, well, I'm likely not going to take them to court over it. It's not worth the time and effort and expense. And so you could say, well, I'm just going to take the $1,400 or whatever. But then the client spreads the word out through reviews and everything else. And so it's not just this one job that went bad. She starts killing your business opportunities moving forward.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just things when people step into this world, they look at it like coming back. I still see articles from Amazon and all these big companies. And now CEOs are taking harder lines like, you'll be in the office by this date or you're fired.
Yeah.
And it just, the world you and I came from, it's just so amazing to see people act like that. That's such an injustice to have to come into the office and who is he or who is she? She's not going to tell me what to do. I'm going to do my own thing over here. And that's great if you've got the talent, the resources, the drive. But that's why businesses are not successful. When they talk about why entrepreneurs, because they don't do the hard work of creating a business plan. They get mad at their boss and they quit.
Yeah.
And they're like, well, I can do landscaping or I can do this. And it's true, you could, but you just jump into it without planning, without preparation, without commitment, without understanding how to run a business successfully, all those other kind of things. And then you're like, oh, look what I walked away from.
Let me throw another idea out there for small businesses. And again, we're not poo-poo on people that want to start their own small businesses. You have a great idea and you have the financial wherewithal and sometimes you can get involved. Yeah. We talked about this on last week's show, I believe the week before, about, are you better off going out and find yourself $1 million investor and starting it from the ground up, or are you better organically, greenwise, starting small so you don't have to give percentages of your business to investors? There's a lot of different ways. But imagine having a relationship like in my business, I'm a relationship person, right? And so I took a lot of the things that I learned in radio in the past and I tried to focus on some of those things and what didn't work in the past. And so I remember we used to go 90 days before people would pay their bills. And they pay their bills after 90 days and we get paid and we would continue to run commercials for them. Even though they were 90 days in arrears, we would run their commercials for them knowing that we're getting money on the books. That's money that we could plan on having on the books. And then, we create these relationships and all of a sudden I remember we started asking out for cash up front. And I was like, gee, that's kind of strange. It was because we were getting stiffed and we were getting stiffed by clients that we've been doing business with for 5, 6, 7, 8 years.
Yeah.
They paid their bills every single month. And all of a sudden they get $1,000 and they get $2,000 and they get $5,000 and they get $15,000 in. They're like, hey, buddy, you're 3 months behind. I know we're just a little behind right now. We've always been good in the past. We'll take care of it. And all of a sudden they stop answering their phones. Imagine being that business owner that you're planning on, you're looking at, every month, you look at your receipts and you look at what you're planning on coming in and you hope you can collect on those things. And all of a sudden, you're a big fish. And I had it happen to me. A $15,000 buy all of a sudden says, listen, I'm not paying. And that's after you've already performed the service. Just talk about a bummer because that money's earmarked.
I'll tell you, we see this exact same thing in the food bank. So we have agencies who come to us and we say, look, you can pay on the spot or we can net 30, which I'm sure the audience knows means, hey, we'll send you an invoice. You have 30 days to pay it. Well, 60 days goes by, 90 days. And when I got here, we had some people that were 180 days. And so we had to create a line. We said, if you get to 90 days, we're going to suspend you from being able to shop, which is basically what you're talking about. It's the same. Eventually there has to be consequences. You can do that inside of a business because you're still going to get paid. The problem is if you have your own business, lots of times you're counting on the revenue coming in to then equip you to be able to go into the next month.
Sure.
And so when somebody goes 90 days in arrears to you, it's not just a matter of you don't have the flexibility, especially when you're a fledgling business. You do not have the flexibility to extend somebody 90 days. And so then you're like, hey, no, I it's been 2 weeks. I got to have that money. And then they're like, well, where's all this pressure coming from? Well, the pressure's coming from, well, not only do I have to put food on my table, but I'm trying to grow my business and I can't do it without the revenue coming in. And so what they don't anticipate is all the stress and what the stress does to you. So it's hard and it's stressful enough, even if you have a good business plan, even if you have good support, it's stressful just going through all the things as a boss, things that you like a lot of times have never had to think about, like running a payroll and making sure that all things work in client management and all that. So even when those things are working well, then you get the normal things of business that when they worked for the man, they didn't see that. They were transparent to them because that was somebody else's headache in the department. Now they're having to take that on and just think about money's not there. It's not because your business may not be successful. It's just people aren't paying on time. And now you start getting behind on your own personal bills. Now you start getting pressure from that side. Now you got to make payroll. People are depending on you. You got that pressure on you. And then I'm telling you, and some people are like, nope, forget this. And that's why you see 107, but only 107 go on to become successful.
Yeah.
Because it takes fortitude. It takes commitment to navigate through those rough waters early on. And almost every business has those rough waters that you have to navigate. And truth matters, most people don't have the stomach for it.
And you talk about the stomach sometimes, and I'm just saying, we're in relationship businesses, and obviously there is a respect value there. Hey, listen, I realize times are tough, and if you explain to me and keep in touch with me and let me know where you are financially and let me know when you're going to pay me, I'm okay with that as long as you keep in touch with me. But there will become a time where they're going to stiff you. It's just going to happen. It could be a family member. It could be anybody.
I was going to say, you get into personal relationships, family member and friends, and then that just affects a whole different dynamic. Lots of times it can be organizations like your local church has hired you.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
This is a church you attend and you're a member. I did want to just throw in, though, something I read that was really interesting because Elon Musk, I know that he's taken a lot of heat about Twitter and just telling people they can go F themselves if they don't want it on Twitter.
Yes.
I mean, huge.
Wouldn't it be great to be Elon Musk just one day in your life to be able to have the finances to say, you know what, you can go F yourself if you don't want to be.
That's right. You don't want to advertise on Twitter?
Because I know the small man that's living in his mom and dad's basement and he's 47 years old is going, yeah, that's the kind of guy I want to be. Well, good luck to you.
Yeah. All you need to do is start Tesla and SpaceX and everything else that he's doing. But he wrote, he said this in an interview. He said starting a company he described it as eating glass and staring into the abyss. And he said he got that quote from a friend. And so you don't think about that, but you think about Elon Musk. He's a really rare dude. And he's brilliant in many ways. In other ways, he's been described as not being a good boss because people don't have the same drives. Like Michael Jordan would never be a good basketball coach, not because he doesn't know, but he's never going to have anybody on his team that's driven like he is.
Yep.
Magic Johnson tried it with the Lakers for a while and failed. Larry Bird tried it, couldn't get the team, but he's describing that and saying that's the problem with starting a business. But you hear when he started Tesla, he basically just had a cot at the office. He was working year round. Now, again, he's able to reap all the benefits of starting a big company and, making all the money, becoming a billionaire and everything else. But that is such the exception because he's really the exception to be that brilliant and that committed. The average person, when they're starting a business, it's like eating glass and staring off to the abyss because sometimes you're just like, how did I get here? And how am I going to get out of where I am? A lot of people end up, you may love a local restaurant and the next day you pull up there and it's like out of business. Mm-hmm. Because what you don't see behind the scene is all the pressure of trying to maintain a staff, trying to serve enough food that's paying for the food coming in and paying staff and able to pay yourself. And lots of people just say it's too much. So we said all this starting about this trend of millennials saying, I don't want to work for the man. All we're trying to do is, and you and I are both big pro entrepreneurial people. I love people to go out and build something new, but we just want to present the other side and say, hey, just be careful what you ask for. Just make sure you're spending adequate amount of time and don't say, I'm just going to quit my business and I'll just go work for myself and start my own business. really think about what you're doing.
Michael, great stuff, man. Happy holidays to you, brother. Thank you.
I enjoyed it.
This has been a special presentation of Tony Kurre Radio.